It started innocently enough with a revival. Suits the long-running legal drama where Meghan Markle once played paralegal. Rachel Zane had quietly surged on Netflix, captivating a new generation of viewers unaware of the behind-the-scenes tension that once simmered on set. Nostalgia bloomed across social media. Fan edits, rewatch threads, trending hashtags, and then like a cold hand gripping the warmth of memory came Lady Colin Campbell. The podcast episode dropped without warning. A clipped teaser posted to her YouTube channel, barely 15 seconds long, was enough to send gossip sites scrambling. She wasn't who you thought she was, Lady C announced, her voice laced with theatrical gravitas. Behind that smile was strategy, behind the charm, calculation. At first it sounded like just another aristocratic jab. But then she said what no royal commentator had dared before, that she'd spoken to many people who had worked alongside Meghan long before the palaces, the press wars, or the titles. From background actors to assistant directors, the whispers aligned. According to Lady C, Meghan operated with precision on the Suits set, projecting poise on camera, but enforcing a rigid hierarchy off it. There was an inner circle favored and flattered, and an outer orbit of those ignored, dismissed, or quietly pushed aside. But the story that truly caught fire involved something trivial: a chair. One day, an extra reportedly sat on a fold-out chair near the lead actor's trailers. Meghan, upon spotting the actor in what she considered her space, allegedly stopped, narrowed her gaze, and asked the AD in a quiet but firm voice why someone was in her seat. Within minutes, the chair was removed. It was small, petty, almost silly, and yet the image stuck. Not just for what it said about entitlement, but for how surgically the environment adjusted to her preferences. Lady C's claim wasn't just that Meghan had diva moments. It was that she engineered control with subtle, deliberate micro-moves, rarely confrontational but always directional. One crew member speaking anonymously recalled, "It wasn't what she said, it's who stopped getting invited to group drinks after rap, who suddenly got fewer lines, who vanished from set entirely." And then came the real twist. What she did to that guest star? Lady C teased in the final seconds of her podcast. Well, that story, I almost didn't believe it myself. Within hours, entertainment blogs were running polls. Should Meghan respond? Twitter sleuths began compiling screenshots of old cast interactions, trying to detect shifts in chemistry. TikTok speculated on the identities of those possibly exiled from the inner circle. The chair incident may have seemed like nothing more than set etiquette, but in the hands of Lady C and the momentum of digital gossip, it became a symbol. A visual shorthand for quiet cruelty, masked as quiet confidence. And as the clip went viral, one thing became painfully clear: Lady C wasn't done. Lady C promises to reveal how Meghan allegedly sabotaged a fellow actor, a story that could redefine how fans view Suits and how the industry views the Duchess of Sussex. The story Lady C alluded to in her cliffhanger wasn't long in coming, and when it did, it arrived with chilling specificity, layered in just enough detail to grip listeners and ignite comment sections for days. According to her sources, the incident began during the filming of Season 3. A guest star brought in for a multi-episode arc delivered a particularly charismatic performance in one courtroom scene opposite Meghan's character. After the take, the director reportedly clapped, laughed, and praised the chemistry, noting aloud that the guest star stole the frame. That single remark, Lady C alleges, marked the guest's quiet undoing. In the following week's scripts, lines were cut. The next episode saw their character's arc suddenly minimized, and by the third episode, they were gone altogether, written out, with a single off-screen explanation. Lady C points the finger squarely at Meghan, citing sources who claim she voiced concerns about being overshadowed and discreetly suggested the narrative tighten around her character instead. No confrontation, no direct orders, just quiet suggestions in the right ears, delivered with polished diplomacy. But the timing told its own story. Soon, screenshots surfaced, glowing notes from the director to the guest star shared privately at the time but now made public by anonymous insiders. Alongside them, an internal memo highlighted an abrupt shift in the shooting schedule, with scenes axed at the last minute. Fans and critics alike began dissecting the edits. TikTok showed side-by-sides of the original teaser trailers versus the aired episodes. Reddit threads mapped character development curves and their unexplained collapse. Suddenly, the chair incident looked less like an isolated ego flare and more like a symptom of something systemic. An ecosystem where power was quietly exercised not through screaming or tantrums, but via controlled access, whispered suggestions, and a strategic command of perception. Lady C's voice dropped as she reached the end of her account. It wasn't just about lines or scenes, it was about the message: no one upstages the future Duchess. And yet, even with so much smoke, there remained a silence from those still close to Meghan. Not one co-star had spoken up to refute the story. Not one. Lady C teases that Meghan's Hollywood tactics were just the prequel to royal scandal, and that the same social divide she imposed on set would soon reappear inside palace walls. The phrase inner circle had been tossed around before, usually in glossy magazine spreads or lifestyle interviews reserved for a curated few who truly knew Meghan. But as Lady C's stories mounted and timelines were stitched together by internet sleuths, the phrase took on a sharper, more divisive edge. According to former crew members cited by Lady C, Meghan constructed a tiered social environment on set, a carefully managed ecosystem of proximity and favor built less on camaraderie and more on utility. Those who served her image, who amplified the version of herself she wanted to be seen, were brought close. Those who didn't, gradually distanced, then discarded. The telltale signs were subtle: at first fewer group lunches, less screen time, omitted call sheets. But over time, a pattern emerged. Assistants who had once walked her to set stopped appearing. Costume stylists who offered too much unsolicited advice found themselves reassigned. And the background cast, once photographed laughing together, began splintering into factions. Social media offered eerie confirmation. Several cast members began liking posts critical of Meghan, not publicly denouncing her, but nodding silently from the sidelines. A notable example, a tweet calling her a master of proximity PR, was liked by a former second unit crew member, quickly noticed and screenshotted before it could be undone. Still, not a single person had come forward to defend her. Not a co-star, not a director, not even the extras she had once been photographed, hugging between takes. Lady C pounced on this silence. "They don't need to speak," she said. "Their silence is thunderous." Even past footage began to be reanalyzed. One resurfaced red carpet interview showed Meghan thanking those who truly supported me behind the scenes. At the time, it seemed gracious. But now, with the emerging narrative, it sounded more like a coded message, even a passive-aggressive jab at those she'd left out. Then came the bombshell teaser. A mid-tier podcast previously unknown outside a niche Hollywood audience announced that they had secured an exclusive interview with a former Suits insider, one who had nothing to lose and was ready to speak on record. The announcement alone triggered speculation across Reddit and TikTok. Who would break the silence first? What would they reveal? Suddenly, the conversation was no longer about one guest star or one chair. It was about an entire set, a microcosm of ambition, optics, and exclusion. Podcast hosts confirmed their insider will speak next week, promising audio that will change how you watch every Suits scene Meghan is in. The countdown to the podcast release became a minor spectacle in itself, with social media buzzing, blind items flying, and even minor Suits alumni being hounded in their Instagram comments. Then finally, on a Tuesday morning, the episode dropped 54 minutes of calm, deliberate testimony from a former assistant director on Suits who went only by her first name, Elise. Elise's tone wasn't bitter, nor was it tabloid-level vicious. Rather, it was the calm unpacking of someone who had spent years wondering whether she was imagining the patterns she saw. But now, as Lady C's revelations poured out, her memory had clarity. She described Meghan as a master of selective warmth, disarming when she chose to be distant, when the cameras were off. She recalled how Meghan was acutely aware of where the cameras were even during B-roll, and how every wardrobe choice and coffee cup placement seemed calculated for potential behind-the-scenes footage. But the real punch came when Elise spoke about the palace rehearsal. According to her, Meghan often framed her goals in aristocratic language long before Prince Harry was even on the radar. She spoke of curating legacy, of ascending narratives, of learning from how the crown brands itself. Meghan wasn't just preparing for stardom, Elise said. She was preparing for reinvention on a global scale. She recounted a striking moment from 2015 when Meghan allegedly rejected a script revision, saying, "It doesn't serve the version of me I want the public to see." That line, Elise noted, stayed with her because no other actor spoke like that. Not about a character, about themselves. The podcast went viral within hours. She was rehearsing royalty, read one headline. Another, Suits was her palace sandbox. And as clips of Elise's interview spread across TikTok and X, so too did old Suits bloopers, red carpet interviews, and behind-the-scenes clips, now annotated, reinterpreted, reframed. That moment when Meghan corrected a makeup artist, no longer harmless. That eye roll during a press junket, suddenly loaded. But perhaps most damning was Lady C's final comment that week. It wasn't just that she was calculating, she said it's that she was rehearsing a crown long before anyone handed it to her. Meghan's camp quietly reaches out to streaming platforms behind the scenes, sparking rumors that they want to suppress the podcast or worse, retaliate. As the digital dust settled and the trending hashtags slowed their spin, a more complex storm began brewing. The war for Meghan Markle's narrative had reached a new front line. Lady C's stories, Elisa's revelations, and the drip feed of anecdotal confirmations painted a version of Meghan that was precise, ambitious, and unrelenting, a stark contrast to the polished, humanitarian-driven Duchess image she had worked so hard to cultivate. And Meghan's camp knew it. Behind the scenes, her PR team had reportedly reached out to major streaming platforms, including Netflix, asking for algorithmic suppression of the now viral podcast episode. While no platform confirmed interference, several creators claimed their views were shadow-dropped within 48 hours. An investigation by a digital watchdog blog even showed a suspicious dip in recommendations related to the episode. Simultaneously, a string of lifestyle magazines, wellness blogs, and Instagram influencers began posting glowing tributes to Meghan, reposting old photos of her feeding dogs, hugging children, or delivering powerful speeches. Some captions appeared suspiciously uniform. Authenticity is not always understood. Meghan is ahead of her time. Read 3 different posts from 3 seemingly unconnected accounts. But the internet had grown more cynical. The comments beneath were no longer universally supportive, half praised her strength, half called out the sudden surge in positive content. Operation Overcorrect began trending, and in that moment a new divide solidified. One faction argued that Meghan was simply a woman punished for being strategic, for refusing to apologize for ambition, for mastering the media, in the way the media never forgives. The other claimed she had weaponized her platform, hiding callous calculation behind curated vulnerability. Lady C, for her part, remained silent after her 4th installment, but her silence felt less like retreat and more like strategy. She had ignited something larger than herself, a movement of retrospection. Every clip of Suits, every public statement from Meghan was now part of a wider decoding project. And Meghan, knowingly or not, had lost something vital in the storm, the ability to control how her past was remembered. So now the battle lines are drawn. Was Meghan Markle the victim of manufactured jealousy or the architect of her own undoing?